Hi, this is No Ordinary Voice of Spiritual Ventriloquism. You are listening to Dummy himself. Well, had a good word today. Pastor Corey, excellent word. Very deep, probing, convicting word. For that, I'm truly grateful that Yah has been a day spring to visit his people today. Of course, he does it every day and uses many vessels. He brings a thing to pass once, twice, yet man doesn't always perceive it. But there can be no mistake today, or just about any other day. If we'll pay attention and look up, we know that Yah is speaking to his people Israel. Well, anyway, I was just talking a little bit this evening tonight with the brothers about language. One of the things that Pastor Corey brought up was the pictographical Hebrew language, which determined the word nasa, which determined whether or not one was worthy to be acknowledged or to be brought forth or lifted up, or and it was a blessing to see the pictographical being brought in, because really and truly, if anyone was paying attention to that, you would have to acknowledge that there is a whole lot more richness and depth in the pictographical language than what you would normally read in like your King James or Scripture's version of the Bible. We start seeing the original tongues. One of the things that I want to mention tonight, and I mentioned to, I believe it was Brother Laron, we talked briefly, was we're under the impression that when Yah came down in Genesis 11 and confused the language, the efforts of the world, who all had one language and one speech, okay? We take that as, in other words, what that means is all the earth had one lip and one manner of speech. In other words, it was all the same, okay? The written language was obviously the same. Okay, and it came to pass, they set out the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and dwelt there, and they said, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city, and a tower whose top may reach into the heavens, and make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over all the face of the earth. Okay. In other words, they must have been perceiving some type of a division that was coming. Because when you see that word lest, it means because there is going to be a scattering over the face of the whole earth. Okay? In other words, lest, meaning this, if we don't do this, this is what's going to happen. Well, the thing that Job greatly feared came upon them. Now, one of the things I want to say about this is that, so Yah said, look, they are as one people and all have one language, and this is what they begin to do, and now they are not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan to do. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, that they do not understand one another's speech. This is a key phrase there. Understand one another's speech. It can't be talking about the written form of writing. It's talking about the language, the speech, the lip. Okay? Because the written forms of writing, whether it's the ancient Sumerian, or whether it's the Canaanite, or the Hebrew, or the Aramaic, or the Egyptian, they all basically had the same pictographical format of writing. Okay? So there wasn't any, confusion in the writing, because you could go to the ancient Sumerian. Just take the word al or el, which is the bullhead, which means first, or in the Sumerian it meant good or God, where we get the word God today. The world by nature knew Elohim. All of them did. But men sought out many inventions. Okay? And they worship the creature more than the creator, who's blessed forever. So, well, anyway, they came down and confused the speech. The language remained the same. They confused the written language. But a written language is of little value when you're trying to do a cooperative effort, because when you have people that are, their speech, their tongue is confused, they can all have the same thing. Don't we all have the same written word of Yah? That might be a few different translations, but it all basically, when you boil it right down, at least in general, tries to attempt to convey the same thoughts and ideas, not always perfectly, some more or less, but we all have the same book, and yet we cannot all speak the same thing. If that ain't a confusion of language, of the lip, of the tongue, of the hearing, of the perception, then I don't know what is, okay? Yah did not come down and confuse the written format. He came down and confused the lip. He came down and confused the understanding so that they would not be able to understand one another. An amazing thing is that because of this confusion that was brought, they left off. And that's why I think these people were perceiving. You know, these people were at a little bit more discernment back then than we do today. And I think that they actually had a closer idea, at least of their own condition. And they were able to gauge. And see, this is what makes wicked wicked. And that was mentioned today. When you know something and yet you withhold, then, you know, it's amazing. You know, you're going to withhold, let a brother go off or whatever, and then are you going to be a Monday morning quarterback and come back later? How wicked is that? Well, anyway, they knew, I believe they knew what was about to happen, that Yah was about to make the move. So the spirits that were within them tried to form a collaborative effort against Yah, against the Most High, to try to thwart his plan or idea. Because you have to understand that it was at this juncture and at this stage that Yah began again pulling and sifting out from among the people a people for his own name. Okay? So he came down and he confused the tongue. He didn't confuse the written format, because the written format is still the same. And this is why the pictographical language, I believe, is the pure language that is going to be turned back to the people of Israel, to the peoples, actually the whole world, because right here, again, in there's another text right here in Zephaniah 3:9, it says, "For then I shall turn unto the peoples a clean lip, so that they all call on the name of Yahweh and serve him with one shoulder." In other words, all their efforts are going to be the same. In other words, what they were trying to do back here without Yah's approval, without his leading, without his involvement, as a counteractive measure, now Yah's saying, he's prophesying through the prophet Zephaniah. He is going to turn to them a clean lip. In other words, he's going to purify a language for the people. He's going to turn to them a pure language, a clean lip. And it says there, and they shall all serve him with one shoulder. And this is the key text here too in verse 10. From beyond the rivers of Cush, my worshipers, tells you where Yah's worshipers are. Beyond the rivers of Cush, my worshipers, the daughter of my dispersed ones, shall bring my offering. Okay? Now, it's amazing that when we come to the book of Messiah, the book of Acts, it says that now in Jerusalem, verse 5, it says, there were dwelling Yahudim, dedicated men from every nation under heaven. This is the same situation that was back here in Genesis chapter 11. It says, and when the sound came to be, the crowd came together and were confused. Here it is. Yah beginning to restore what he had undone in Genesis chapter 11. And when the people came together, they were confused. Of course they're confused. They're all broken up in different languages, different nations. Their lips are still not clean. Okay? It says, because everyone heard them speak in his own language. Now everybody's hearing these 120 people speak in their own language, and they're speaking only one language. But yet the miracle's in the hearing. Now the understanding is being brought back. Not only is the clean lip being replaced, but also the understanding so that others might understand. Yah is now, through the Spirit, through the set-apart Spirit, he is now restoring what was done by him too in Genesis chapter 11 at Babel. It says here, and how, and they were all amazed and marveled, saying to each other, look, are not all these who speak Galileans? And how do we hear each one in our own language in which we were born? Parthians and Medes and Elamites and those dwelling in Aram, okay? Naharim and both Yehuda and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, Mitzrayim, Egypt, and the parts of Libya around Cyrene, visitors of Rome, both Yahudim and converts, Cretians and Arabs. We hear them speaking in our own tongues the great deeds of Elohim. And what does this mean? Well, the ones to whom it wasn't given the clean lip begin to mock and saying, these men are filled with sweet wine, new wine, which is tirosh, which is something that's come right out of the press and is beginning to bubble up in effervescence and ferment, and something that it's really not great wine yet. It's just it's so fresh that it can grab and seize a hold of the brain. These people understood these things, and that's why they mocked. You know, they're saying these men are full of new wine. It says, Kepha said here, standing up, he said, men of Yehuda and all those dwell in Jerusalem, this is being known to you. These men are not drunk, as you imagine, since it is only the third hour of the day. But this is what was spoken by the prophet Yoel, who is only confirming the prophet Zephaniah, and what was done is now being undone in measure and in part through the eternal set-apart Spirit, what was done back in Genesis chapter 11. It says, I shall pour out of my Spirit on all flesh, and your sons, remember Zephaniah said, and I shall turn unto the peoples a clean lip. And I shall pour out my Spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and daughters shall prophesy. And even in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and 14, it says that prophesying is better to them because it people can understand what the language that's being said. But here, there is a communication of the Spirit that is acting as a gift of interpretation so that all men could hear these wonderful great deeds of Elohim. It says here, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. That means seers, okay? That means seers, okay? I'll do another video on the difference between seers and prophets. And also upon my male servants and on my female servants I shall pour out of my Spirit in those days, and they shall prophesy. Okay? In other words, they're going to prophesy. Okay? They're going to declare the great deeds of Elohim. Okay? So, anyway, that's just an idea here, and I just a little bit of a video here to share with you and to let you know that what was written down back then in any nation, it pretty much was all the same thing. But it was the dialectical tongue. It was the way that things were spoken that people did not understand one another, so that it hindered their work and their ability to confederate and become one people, because it's not time and neither was it the right situation for the earth to become one people. But it is coming. It's coming soon. The earth shall become one people. For a little while, under the reign of the Satan, even today, and then after that, the world has been prepared for Israel, who shall have a clean lip, and they shall all speak
with one consent, they all shall serve Yah with one mind and one agreement. Hallelujah. Well, anyway, that's just a little bit of a take on that from today. Shalom. Have a good night.